Hi everyone, I'm Charlie Kyle, I'm the principal of Innis College, and happy to welcome you to tonight's presentation of Content Farm, along with a screening, then discussion, then Q&A to involve you, and we'll get started. So I will typically start with the land acknowledgement. Typically it comes up on the screen. There you go. So we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the traditional land to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work and celebrate on this land. So it's my great pleasure to bring you this special event. We don't always, or even often, or should I just say seldom, present material that is not film. As you can see, it's Canadian Film Forum. But this, at the very least, has a film connection because one of the creators is a past student of the Cinema Studies Institute. But I also think we have to get a little bit more expansive about what we mean by film. And so I would just say screen entertainment. And so Content Farm is definitely going to be shown on this screen, and it's definitely entertaining. So it fits the bill. I didn't get a chance to ask the creators, so pardon me while I just have a mini sidebar discussion here. Have you guys ever seen it on a screen this big? No. No. So many of you in the room may know that this is a series that was created for small screen viewing primarily, but again, many of you might say, well, isn't everything watched on a small screen now? And as an instructor of cinema, that's a dagger to the heart. But this is something that is typically seen by individuals on a device, probably. And so this is a wonderful opportunity to share this material in a large screen format with people in the room, and I think especially for the creators, this is going to be a wonderful experience because you don't normally get that opportunity to see how people respond to something like this because it isn't designed for, audiences in a large format in an auditorium. So, all that said, who are these creators? So let me introduce them to you. I am reading a bio just in case you wonder why the glasses are coming on. So, as you can see, Alaine Hutton and Lauren Gillis are the creators. They are a performing, writing, directing, and designing duo with a decade of shared training in physical performance and making people uncomfortable. So, you've been forewarned. They create questionably comedic theater, film, and digital not otherwise specified, often revolving around the internet, ruining our brains, distorting our sexualities, and how we can't stop looking at it. They graduated from the theater program at U of T, Alaine with a minor in cinema studies, and Lauren with a major in neuroscience. Alaine studied in Paris, France. I feel like I should say Paris, France, because it's going to be at École Internationale de Théâtre Jacques Lecoq. And their continued performance practice stems from training in Butoh-based embodiment with Denise Fujiwara and Fides Kuker's emotionally integrated voice. They are currently working on Day Gamers, an animated series that I expect they will tell you more about in the Q&A. I should also say that I just had a discussion with someone who was involved in the drama program when Alaine and Laura were there, and she could not say enough good things about both them as people and about the creative spirit that animates everything they've done since they were at U of T and onwards. So they have at least one great fan in the room, and I'm sure there'll be many more. So let me also introduce the moderator of the discussion. So when the screening is over, we'll advance directly to the discussion plus Q&A. Gambian, Canadian, American performer Khadija, now I've got the name pronounced right, or do you? Okay. Mbowe is a charismatic and dynamic singer, entertainer, educator, writer, and all-round creative. They are also a content creator using their voice and social media platforms to entertain and educate whenever they can. Writing, filming, producing, editing, and starring in their own projects on a weekly basis. Their growing YouTube channel has over 5 million views and counting. That's about 4,999,000 more than the Innis College YouTube channel. They are an alumnus of the University of Toronto with a Bachelor in Music from 2020, and the co-founder and executive director of the Marigold Music Program, aimed at changing the visual landscape of music by empowering marginalized youth. So, without further ado, we are now going to watch the 3 episodes, which is to say the series in its entirety, of Content Farm, which will take us about 45 minutes to do so. So, away with the show.
Hello, testing. Oh, perfect. Hi, how is everybody? I know, you're like, the lights are just coming on, everyone's still awake, processing a lot. Firstly, let's give them one more round of applause. Creators, Lauren Gillis and Alaine Hutton. And I am going to be hosting tonight's discussion. My name is Khadija Mbowe. The one thing that was left out of my bio, which I will forgive you for, is that I also go by Loving Provocateur. And it seems like we're all on the same page here because that show is lovingly provocative, if I do say so myself. Can you tell me a bit about the inciting incident, the inception, when you were like, let's do a thing?
Absolutely. Is this?
I know, I had to do a little, hey.
Yeah?
You can use this one if you want.
There we are. Well, experiencing the endless onslaught of what we call the garbage machine. So any feed that
Otherwise known as Mark Zuckerberg's internet.
You know, we see a lot of junk and we see some stuff that we think, oh, maybe that's real. And there's sort of this background awareness that a lot of stuff is made by bots. And we all know that, but do we? We started thinking, what if we could make little short art films that basically look like junk or sludge content so that you'd see them in a feed and you'd be like, oh, that's a piece of garbage. Wait, that's weird. There's something slightly off about that. And then from that, we started asking the question, okay, well, if you were a bot and you were generating content, what would you learn about people? Just how people create, what people enjoy from looking at the internet. So we took those 2 ideas and it became Content Farm.
We had a discussion before, because I got to see a little preview of it beforehand, and it's still funny to me. Like, I was laughing at different parts, and I think I understand the dog story. I think I understand it, because when we first talked, I said I have no idea what's happening here. But we'll get to that later. But when we were talking about generational differences when it comes to how somebody engages online. And we're all in and around the same age. So I wanted y'all to maybe talk to the audience a bit about what is your relationship to the internet, because it's like everybody's inception of it kind of lets you know where they were during Web 2.0 onwards.
Well, let me check. Is this on? Yeah. We were in university here when Facebook came out. Like, we are kids that grew up with no phones, no iPhones, all of that kind of stuff came later. So I would say, you know, I heard about Facebook. I didn't join it in university. I was like, this won't catch on. And it just, like, it was slowly coming, and it was just, okay, ways to connect with your friends, text, like all of that was, I was already in my mid-20s when this sort of became where everyone was doing their connecting. And I would think over the next 10 years, it started off with that, getting to know your friends, getting to see like events and share things. And there was a point where Lauren and I started looking at each other saying like, hey, I just sent you a like video about a panda, and now my entire feed is pandas. Like, isn't that peculiar? We're like, that's weird. And now today, if you talk about sponges, you're getting ads for like that. We just assume that's how it is. But several years ago, we were starting to notice that that was a bit weird. And then there was slowly, like, filters came. You know, we have to talk about the fact that there was a time when mostly it was real people on the internet. Mostly people wanted to be engaging in discourse or sharing things or creating original things. And then there was a time where, you know, getting all these invites by, you know, some lady with no clothes on in Berlin, like several, like, why she only have 3 posts and why am I getting like 3 a month? Like, we started to notice that before it became so mainstream that we all know it now. I think that was for me.
I made a GeoCities website in 1999 when I was in grade 5.
Ahead of the curve.
Wait, what is that?
Pioneer.
What is geo?
GeoCities, you could make your own website in the mid to late 90s, and it was very colorful.
Yeah, because you had to know how to code. Okay, so we're like, it's interesting
You
too
didn't have
how.
to know.
Wait, what?
No, you didn't have to know at all. You could go, you could choose the background color. There weren't many fonts. You could put images.
Music?
I think you could put like a MIDI file.
Okay. There are some people born in a certain year that are like, a what file? Okay, so sorry, continue, please.
Then I felt like it was socially necessary to get Facebook. I've managed to avoid Instagram.
What?
Yeah.
I need you to teach me your ways.
Okay, no, you need it.
No, I really don't. I really don't.
None of us need it. It's doing damage to us. A lot of damage.
Were you not watching?
And then YouTube has just replaced television for me.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
same,
Yeah,
definitely.
I've managed to avoid TikTok, but now instead I'm just addicted to YouTube Shorts, which is the same thing.
They'll
So
get
it
you.
doesn't matter.
They'll find it. They'll find a way. They'll find
Yeah.
a platform that you will look at.
Which is why I think I understand the dog thing now. But I don't want to say
Okay.
we had an agreement
Okay.
because I'm curious, show of hands, if any of y'all feel like you understand what the dog thing was.
Oh yeah, we got to get mics to. I saw a hand over there.
I see one hand.
Sure. Yeah.
Is it too personal? Did you see something?
Fair enough.
Anybody else have an insight on what they thought the dog person section was about?
It's not a test, by the way. It's also
Yeah, it
just
really
like
isn't. Sorry,
how it-
we're all
how
looking
it
at you like
how it resonated with you, or you're like, it reminded me of this, or I got this from it. I love that. I love that. It is like the dogs playing poker, isn't it? Yeah. Like a horrible cliched image that gets replicated and replicated.
That's what I was
Right,
like,
like,
is that what
yeah,
it's called?
I see dogs playing poker now too. Great.
A copy of a copy of a copy is the idea that I got from it.
Okay.
Of how do you think the question, how do I know anything that I think is real if everything is a copy of a copy of a copy?
Mm-hmm.
Am I on the right track here?
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote Sailor Moon.
Wait, you made eye contact with me for a second. I was like, did you?
I mean, I think that's like I saw not too long ago someone being like, "Oh, this person's copying that TikTok move of like Capricorns are made out of these things," and then like 100,000 other people did like, "Oh, whatever, people born in this time." Like it's just they're copying all the same. Once you see a trend, and then they just replicate it, and it's like, well, what if we're doing that on such a mass scale for all content? And people's faces, and you can no longer tell anymore.
Until it's just dog face, human face, dog poker.
That's right. I mean, there's far and bad places we can go. And the dog people are supposed to sort of, oh, that's not comfortable.
Because, yeah, it seemed like y'all weren't being too judgmental about the way we engage online. You're just trying to unpack and understand it. But would you say that the dog people is probably on the darker end of the spectrum?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it could be dark to us. I know when I think about intellectual property, that's, tearing through the tangles in my mind in making this and thinking about it now. Like, I have this idea that, like, well, it doesn't make sense, to take an iconic image like dogs playing poker. Well, obviously that's in the public domain, right? And the idea of some dogs that are playing poker, I mean, you can't copyright that. That's so silly. Or it's like you can't copyright a fork. You can't patent a fork. It's a fork. And why would you want to? Like, people, it's a useful thing. There's forks everywhere. And then I'm like, okay, well, do we need intellectual property? I'm like, well, what if someone took 2 hours of you doing, one of your very insightful, humorous cultural analyses of something and copied it word for word and made a Khadija deepfake and said, it's Khadija too? I'd be like, no. Or took my face, be like, oh, that's my face. Well, why? How? And I feel like, I don't know, I've been sort of engaging maybe superficially with this, or I keep hearing this idea, like John Ronson brought it up in 2012 when a bunch of shitlords on Twitter took his name and made a Twitter bot, and he was like, you can't just take my name and tweet garbage all day. That's my name. They're like, well, who gave you that? You don't own your identity.
Yeah, not on here. I think that's a scary, well, you said it wasn't scary, but that's really scary. Because especially online, it is true. I think about this a lot. We don't own anything. We rent everything. I'm thinking, like, people are like, oh, can you afford to get a house? I'm like, I'm 31. I own 2 DVDs. Like, I
own those.
I own those. And I thought about it. Like, what if a streaming platform decides they're going to take a movie that you love offline? They can do that now if they need to make money, and you'll never see it again unless you actually own it. What do we own, including our own identities, online?
Yeah, and especially like once you put it out there, once you
it
put
doesn't
your
belong to
face
you.
or whatever, like there was a time where it felt sort of like joyful to share with your friends. And now, the poor Carl who's got all those dating profiles, you don't know who you're on fake dates with. Like who is swiping past you and never getting responses. Like we're ghosting people left, right, and center, for sure.
Gosh. And speaking of all the deep fakes, I guess, trash funnel, I kept calling it trash tunnel, trash funnel, where he's interviewing all of these different individuals, and you can tell he doesn't really care. It's just for the content. He's just like, yeah, it sucks. She's like, I can't afford my rent. He's like, trash funnel. I was like, oh my God, it's my coworkers. It's me. I was staring into a mirror. When he said subscribe or don't, I don't care. I was like, I think I've said those exact words. But the relationship that he has to John
Johnson.
Ronsonvale. Thank you. Johnson, wait.
A DJJR.
DJJR. Yes, the relationship they have together. Speak a little bit about this, because I think it's interesting that somebody that's, I joke around and say I have half a sociology degree. I don't know anything. I'm just talking online. But how you can connect someone like that with an expert, and then it gets into conspiracy land, even if there's truth in there.
So in our imaginations, Don John is kind of like a postdoc that's streaming from a closet. And he's linked up with this sort of like aging millennial shitlord who kind of got washed out of comedy and is now doing these scandalous interview videos. And he's got this idea, it kind of sounds like nonsense. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, bots are doing this, bots are doing that. And it's sort of like, okay, I don't know. You hear it a few times and you're like, okay, that guy's nuts. And then you see a little more evidence and you're like, okay, maybe he has a point. But there isn't really a point where we go, oh, like this has now moved from conspiracy theory to conspiracy. It's sort of like there's this smooth gradient where it's like it was a conspiracy theory, and then at some point we're like, I always knew that was reality. I'm not stupid. And I think Content Farm is at that point where what people are willing to accept about what is going on with bots in this world is they're not quite willing to accept what Don John has to say. He certainly can't go on the regular news.
Definitely not.
And he's even a bit iffy. Trey knows that he kind of has to take the piss out of him a bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I was like, just like went to a dark place thinking about this man sitting in his closet streaming on CNN.
It's next year.
Honestly, we're not too far. You guys should hold on to this as just like a time capsule, if you will, just to see 10 years from now what the internet landscape might look like. But I see them as vignettes as well. The other vignette that I think a lot of people could relate to, or not necessarily relate to in terms of how many people, well, actually, show of hands, who would do Love is a Blind deep fake? Even if it was just for fun. Hey, see? There was like another hand somewhere back there. I mean, I'd try it. I'd try it at least once. But would either of you try it, actually?
No.
She won't
I
even
don't
use
like Zoom.
Instagram.
I don't like Zoom. Although,
The VR date.
to be fair, I think if there was like a non-reality TV based setup where you
Yes.
could try like the full, like what Todd describes as like the nipple suit, if it was available for a reasonable price and you could try it, I'd try it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The nipple suits for you, but not Zoom.
not Zoom.
Got it.
Yeah, we don't have to broadcast it on reality TV. Does that change anyone's mind? Just kidding. All right. But for that one, I remember when we were talking about it, the first thing that we noticed, and I'm sure many audience members noticed, is that these men are willing to go do these extreme forms of dating, even broadcasting it on a reality show, something that you wouldn't think is a traditional dating format, although I guess now it is. But they can't do non-monogamy.
Nope.
Like, your girlfriend is not real.
She's
But
everyone's girlfriend.
but the patriarchy has followed us in the room. How intentional was that?
I mean,
I said knowing the answer.
yeah, like to talk about like where are we in dating and how far have we come and what are people Todd doesn't care that his girlfriend's digital. Like, he doesn't need to feel her. He's got the nipple suit. Like, how far we are away from physical connection or that sort of in person meeting people like in real life, all of that, just far. And people are fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. And to have these two men have just for their own reasons, he's been hurt before, Darren, but they cannot handle that idea. That those two things are moving together into the future at the same time.
I think also for me, what I find is sort of the engine of reality TV dating shows, and what keeps the tension, because sort of the setup is like, these people will break all taboos, but we will maintain this taboo. Like, you have to have some kind of structure. You have to have some kind of tension for the sort of the premise to work, right? And so the premise is that we will find very open-minded, very promiscuous, very strange, very entertaining, very attention-hungry people who will date 17 different people in 1 month on TV.
The voice.
Right? But if you don't sort of put the tension of the monogamy against it, then how can you can't have a winner, you can't have a competition. So you have to find people who are really, really, really like have no boundaries, but they're also very, very, very monogamous in order to make the show work. And
Conflict. You need that conflict.
It's true, though, because there's a show called Couple to Thruple. Yeah. Oh, I saw 4 people go. It's a real show where couples decide to invite a third into their relationship, and it's a reality show, and I did finish it in a day because that is my truly toxic trait, because anyway, we're not going to talk about the morality of reality TV right now. But that show was so interesting to me because they're still doing exactly what you say. They're so open. They're going to invite a third. And yet they don't want the third to go with somebody else. And I'm like, okay, you guys, what are we doing here? It's fascinating. That's like, it's the, as you said, in the future, this is kind of, interestingly enough, more people are exploring different ways of being in relationships, different ways of being with people, but the reality TV aspect, the entertainment aspect, the stakes have to still be there.
The stakes, yeah.
The stakes, not the literal, but the stakes.
Yeah.
I have a random question that came to my mind before we continue with the vignettes. Why name it Content Farm?
I mean, I think like we were seeing actual content farms starting to like be everywhere, and just like we're like, how are they making 6 videos a week?
Can you explain also to people that don't know,
yeah.
that maybe is a better question, what a content farm is?
A content farm is, originally it was text-based, so it would be one of those sites where basically anything that produces vast quantities of usually very low quality content simply like often it's full of like search engine optimization terms. Basically when you click on something thinking it's an article and you're like, why are there 50 ads in this article? And the article, like it feels like it was written either by a human in under half an hour. It doesn't cite any sources and it's not very well done. Or in the case of a video, you know, if you see those life hack videos and you're like, okay, 15 life hacks for summer, and you're like, doesn't this video contain, like you've only been watching for 5 seconds, and already you're like, oh no, it's gonna think, the algorithm's gonna think I wanna see more of this, I'm gonna see this all day tomorrow. It's basically recycling content, and that the content is not, at the sort of core of the content, there was never really an intention to like make a great thing. People were like, okay, let's make a lot of content. Traditionally, we would expect that it would be humans making the content, but it's becoming increasingly unclear whether that's still the case. And this is based on the premise that like, why make these poor writers write all that garbage content? Why make real people appear in content mill videos when content generating bots can do it? And do we care, and is that different?
Which leads us to Jessica, which I did not know was you. When, like, I knew it was you, right? But I don't know how to explain it. I just was like, oh, they definitely have another actor. Like, it was wild to me that Jessica is not a real person at all.
Well, I mean, she's me with someone
yes.
else with a rented face.
With a rented face. The bots, gosh.
That's gonna be a new phrase.
With a rent, honestly, it is a rented face. But talk to me a bit about your transformation then into Jessica from bot, Judith.
I think it was, you know, the actual process for anyone who doesn't know, we did deep fake. So we had this very beautiful, you know, Instagram influencer looking gorgeous girl come in, and this technology, we captured her face, and then I put on a wig and the little suit and got in the background and did my best influencer. And then when we picked our takes, they mapped on her face to my performance, creating a whole new character. And it was really sort of the extreme subtleness that Judith has. This robot, all the wires on the inside, to this very, you know, lovely, pulling, like finding that right, like she's your best friend. We always like, her little tagline is like, what is it? Peach, no.
Beach bum, dog lover, girl next door.
Yeah,
Yes.
just
Not offensive.
Yeah.
It's funny, she's the most not offensive, but then at the end, we're trying to understand offense, which I think is also interesting that the bots, that's the thing that they don't understand, and that's the last thing that you hear them talk about, offense. Human beings, especially online, we get offended very easily, it might seem, from the minute she's everyone's bestie. She's the most, your unproblematic fave. We love her. And then the minute she does something slightly problematic.
To me, it was really like finding when influencers or these like Instagram gorgeous girls like started flooding everybody's screen. It was like we wanted to love them. They were trying to get you to love them. That was their job. They were giving you nice things. Everyone wanted the gorgeous and the heart emojis. Like that's what it was about. And then later, it was like, oh no, we love to love them and we love to hate them. And it was like a sad and a big deal if people like said negative comments on your, there was that time where it's like, oh God, I'm getting negative comments. Well, now it's 50-50, or now you've got everything. And as long as people are watching, does it matter? Doesn't matter to the doesn't matter to them. Doesn't matter to the bots. Love, hate, it's all the same wash as long as it's eyes. So having her kind of transition and figure that out as a journey kind of reflected how we saw the internet move.
Even creating her, like what she looked like, what bits and pieces are we gonna take from different faces that we see online, different body pieces. She's slightly tan, she's not gonna be too tan. Make sure she smile. I like the addition of the lisp. It gives her a bit more of an endearing kind of like, oh, hey guys, I'm just, And then I think it also speaks to how savvy, and you're not on Instagram, but how kind of online y'all are in a way, because all the memes that you made of her, like I was just like, y'all had your own little content farm in there, just making all of these different, like it was so, I don't know, it felt like I was watching a screen, but it is kind of odd to see it on a large screen. I don't know if y'all felt like that. Like, I was like, you're right. It was meant to be seen on like a phone, which is also interesting that now film, television content is being made for smaller screens.
I just have to say about my experience, like I've seen this, I edited it, so I've seen it too many times, so many times, an unbelievable number of times have I seen this. And I think it was the first time watching it that I was like, God, we made something too dark. It's too dark. It's hurting me. It's painful to watch this. I have anxiety again from watching this. And I'm like, you've seen it 1,000 times. You made it. You've lived it. It's okay. And I'm like, it's not okay. It's terrible in there. So I think it's, watch it on your phone just for your own health.
Not for your
It's too much.
Well, I think with a little sort of this initial outburst of memes that come from this live stream moment, we wanted people to see, like, by the time a meme gets to you, it's at least mediocre, right? Maybe it's even good or funny, but that we have these memes, and some of them, they're not good. Like, some of them
They don't make sense.
And that was a great delight, creating memes that some of them were maybe funny, but some of them are just like, I don't think tacos is going to catch on.
It did. I'm going to tell you that one spiritually, right here. It was a look in her eyes. What can I say? But that's the other thing, too, that I find so interesting about the internet. You don't know what's going to resonate with certain people. It's so strange what you find funny, and everyone thinks that their algorithm looks like their friend's algorithm, which is only partially true. Are you a YouTube person?
I'm more of the Instagram user, and Lauren's more of the YouTube user. We try and divide and conquer so we can both survive.
Fair. I was going to see if your algorithms were somewhat...
I'm certain they're not.
Okay, like you're on your YouTube homepage. What's popping up?
Oh,
if you want to share. I know it's
absolutely. A lot of ASMR.
Oh.
Yeah, so a lot of ladies with long fingernails, clicking and clacking, eating gummies and things like that. A lot of like 2 and 3 hour long dissections of like intellectual or slightly scandalous things in like pop culture or like slightly just like off arts or off like yeah.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
I really love learning. I feel like you can learn interesting things about people by, oddly enough, learning their algorithm, like what's on their homepage.
Oh, I would say like in my Instagram one, my homepage. Oh, I actually run 5 different Instagram accounts. So now I don't know who I am anymore because on one I happen to follow like all kinds of like, outfit designs, and another one it's all puppies, it's all cats memes, like, and I don't, because I'm flipping between all of them, I get so confused by who I am because they're feeding me different, like a whole different set of human, you know what I mean, like characteristics.
Like you don't have one place where all the things you like live.
No, they're spread across many things because the algorithm's feeding each one of my profiles something different.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love going to the Content Farm YouTube because it's so peaceful.
Yeah, I was like, I imagine it's probably very, very still.
I don't watch a lot of disturbing stuff when I'm logged in there, so it's got just like the lo-fi hip hop girl,
Oh yeah,
right?
Everybody
and
knows
like,
her.
like old psychedelic albums, like Japanese jazz from the 80s.
Oh yeah,
It's lovely. And then I go to mine, and then it's like, this is what's wrong with everyone.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do a 2-hour dissection of it.
or like a 2-hour dissection of like people that believe that you can get all your nutrients from breatharians, like
Yep.
air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely that person. I'll watch that anyway. What do you guys hope more than anything, people that watch this? I know it might be a big ask, but when you're creative, you can't control what people will feel about it. But what do you hope people take away from each of these vignettes that you've created and the series as a whole?
I hope that someone asks themselves a question about maybe a moment in their own experience of the internet that they're like, oh, I glossed over that, didn't I? I just sort of accepted that. But actually that was a whole thing that happened there. Like it was a whole thing. When did I learn that like you monetize outrage? Like if someone told me that like it's news, I'd be like, don't be so patronizing.
Like we know,
But then
we know.
like, how did I actually learn that? And how do I know that's true? And if someone asks himself something like that, doesn't have to be about that, could be about when was the first time you thought, oh, that's my property. I thought of that idea.
I'm asking myself. I'm like locking them away like,
Yeah, it's similar. I think like we're so washed over by internet and social media, and like it's so, at least what I see, you're integrated into it, and there isn't that much time away to sort of step back and be like, what is going on here, and how is it manipulating me, and like who is on there, and actually who's seeing this, and does that mean anything to me, and how am I like, still responding to social media like that hurts my feelings, and I'm like, but who, like who's hurting your feelings, and why are you engaging in this way, and like to stop and think about it, like it's a little bit painful to watch the show, and I think that's a good thing. Like it's cringe comedy for that reason. If it was just a joyful good time, you wouldn't walk out with like, oh, something about that was yucky.
Yeah.
And maybe we should think about our time in the social media realm. Like some parts of this is yucky, and we should take a look at it.
I mean, maybe someone here had a joyful good time. I don't know.
I mean, well, we're going to ask the audience if they want to ask some questions, so y'all can let us know if you had a joyful good time. Yeah? We have. I'm going to give you. Yes. Sorry, they're going to bring you so that everyone can hear your question.
Yeah, I was interested when you were talking about Jessica, because recently there was that actors strike, and they were talking about some, and I wasn't really clear on it exactly what it was when it was out in the news about them being worried about their image and how it was going to be used down the road. But now that you see Jessica there and how you explained how, you know, they could take anybody's face and just create a new character, and they would have no recourse for their own face, you know? So it was, I thought was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
When we made the contracts, so, you know, we had to ask people, so can you come in? It's going to take about 20 minutes. We're going to record your face. Then we're going to use your face in this show. Do you want to read the show? Right? Okay. And then, you know, you pay people at this budget scale, we're talking about several $100 to use their face. And technically we do have the data that if we were unscrupulous, we could just put those people's faces here and there. So we do have the ability to do that. And I think it's just another thing you have to read through contract fine print on now.
And like the copyright laws and where you're using it and how you use it is like, that's why they striked, because there's not enough regulation in there about just putting people, well, if you're in this form, well, after that, where does it go and how is it used after that?
Because we can now copy paste you.
Yeah. I was actually I told Lauren the other day, I was like, you know what? We should make sure our faces get deep faked, like that we have all the data so that we can play younger versions of ourselves. Like by the time we make something next, we might be old. And what if we want to play like 20-year-old versions of us?
It's wild that that's like how also ahead you have to think. Like, yeah, we should probably
I'm going to age, so I better capture young me so I can play anyone I want.
It's no longer in a still photograph. It's no longer it's in a photo album. It's maybe in my digital camera. It's now a full video that can be recreated in real time.
Well, like, that's weird to think, but I'm like, yeah, I would just, you know, deep fake. I would play a character of my own self, but with my younger face. Right? Like, why wouldn't I do that? It's my face.
Y'all, too many of y'all are nodding in here. Wait a minute. I need
right? Why would I be concerned about my own frown lines and let my face age? Go ahead. That's real life face. I'm going to use my face at 20, 30, 40, play anything I want.
Somebody just said brilliant. Oh, wait. Can you bring down the microphone here?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to?
Oh, no, I just said the number of, I think that's once you pass the age of 40, your number of auditions as a female actress drops by 70%. So why not? It's a great business idea.
I think so.
Offer that to actors. We'll invest.
Y'all, I'm scared. I mean, I see I see it. Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, there's a question just behind there.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I actually love that you have a choice whether you want to go on Instagram or not, and that you actually have that experience of not being. And I hope, like for me, I would want all of my younger nieces and nephews to watch this, and that it would elevate their choices of, I can be on social media, I cannot be on social media, stuff like that. And then I wanted to ask, just as you were doing this, was there any moment where it wasn't anything but art? Even the deep fake, did it become art?
I would say, okay, first of all, make sure you tell your nieces and nephews and all of them, they can be off social media as long as they have a friend who will take the brunt of being on social media for you collectively. Okay? because she has to witness me being on social media, and that might be harder. Okay, so the whole making of this was absolute art. Like coming up with the ideas, like sculpting the script to be like, how do we make it make sense? How time is passing, and now you're aware of things, and now you're more aware of things. So if we're pushing envelopes, how do we keep pushing, and how do we keep going so that we land in right that exact place? That whole process was like a beautiful sort of how do we slither into psyches. And the tangible experience of making it, our DOP is here as well, and it was really and our first AD is here as well, and having us, just the small crew, trying to make so many worlds, because that's what the internet is. Everything looks different. You go from here, the quality, the textures, the colors, the people, all of it is changing so much, so fast. And that experience of trying to put all of that together at rapid speed with very little resources, with just your pals, was like, that to me was art.
I think also there's something that's kind of sad and beautiful about when you start to really look at content mill or content farm stuff as art, and you're like, well, at some point someone thought of that little icon, right? Like they had to work in Illustrator for a whole day maybe, and they were like, oh, well, there's this garbage, there's just like a channel called Tea Dump, and it's got a little tractor that's kind of it's pouring the tea, it's spilling the tea out, right?
6 hours of her life.
Someone had to make that, right? And I'm like, wait, today I'm making it. Somebody makes the whole internet, and then other people duplicate it and replicate it and copy it. And we're like, oh my God, look at this onslaught of absolute garbage that's just assaulting my senses day in, day out. Turn it off. Show me the thing I wanted to look at. I don't want to see these ads. I don't want to see this sludge. But somebody made it, and that was a strange experience, to make it and think of all the millions of people who make it.
That gives me a question then. What is the difference between content and art?
I think art at its core is inherently useless, and that is its strength. Content,
Say more things. I'm like,
content has
That's also what I told my parents as a child. Being a child is inherently useless.
Content, I think, has, in the way we understand it, it's made with an intent toward attention or filling a slot or monetization, most commonly. And the two can overlap and intersect. But there has to be something, for me at least, for something to be art, there's a certain, it's not really for anything, is it?
You'd be one of the arts for art's sake people.
I think it can do other things.
Yes.
It can have other influences and effects, but at the core, there's that trickster, or there's that there's a sense of delight, or it can't be utilitarian, though it may become so. I think
you're making art, you're saying it
yes.
can't be with the intention of that. It
can't be the sole intent. You can be like, I'm going to make something completely useless. It might be monetized. In fact, it probably has to be monetized, or we'll never see it.
I feel like, to me, that's like, and it feels so nice to be here, because I feel like that's what university is for. Like, at no point do you have to make something to make money in university.
Yeah.
Maybe if you
Heck, you're paying.
dearly, dearly love your teachers, and maybe you want to please them or this and that, but they teach you how to not have to feel that way, and to really get into the core of your art making and questioning and thinking. And then as soon as you leave, they're like, yes, but how do I monetize this? And like, how profitable is this? And I was like, wait, I haven't learned how to do that. They just told me to think and to make and to be. And now I have to figure out how to monetize every goddamn thing. And I'm like, oh no, okay, well fine, we'll do it sneaky.
So for you then, is the difference whether it's monetizable between content and art?
No, I agree that there's like, there's a spectrum, and having things that start, just art for art's sake and then become, and there's things that like advertisement. There's ads that are beautiful and tell a story, but they're as ads. So it's kind of this whole spectrum, but it just made me think about being in university when I was really making art for art's sake, and then the difference between being out in the world where it's important that you can make money.
And still be creative and say something
Exactly.
different and interesting.
And finding where those things live and where they don't live, and being able to have enough discernment to figure out the two.
The word discernment has been on my mind a lot lately, so that was like a... Are there any other... Oh, we've got another question up in the front here. Burgundy sweater.
Hi. I don't know if it's a question. Maybe. I don't want to open up a whole Pandora box and keep everyone here for a long time, but I want to piggyback on what was said, and I think what makes this great is that you guys were kind of ahead of time, because I'm going to say two words, artificial intelligence right now, and everything that's happened in the past 2 years, and the generative AI, Sora, blah, blah. So I guess I'm just curious, how much did you know about it when you were working on this, and how has your conversations changed since you made this and all the developments, and what is coming for season 2?
So we started working on the demo for Content Farm in 2020. And at the time, it seemed to me that generative adversarial networks, which is what the protagonists are based on, mostly in the form of image generators, would be like the big deal. I didn't necessarily think that large language models were about to really take off. Fortunately, when we released Content Farm, it was 2 weeks, it just happened to be 2 weeks after the release of ChatGPT 4. So it was fortuitous timing. Would we have made them a generator and discriminator if we had been able to foresee what has gone on with large language models? Maybe not. But I hope that sort of season 1 of Content Farm will stand as a kind of almost like a weird little nostalgic, when you look at things from the 50s that are like, when you look at any kind of futurism or any kind of sci-fi, and you're like, so that's what someone thought we would get to. And there are, what maybe one day we will see. I mean, I even look now at the melting dog faces that were made by AI image generators in 2020, and I'm like, they look funny to me now. They look very funny to me now. Charmingly old.
Yeah, this is retrofuturism.
Exactly.
I think the other thing that really changed, like when we were pitching it and we were making it, people were like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm having a really hard time understanding this whole AI thing that you're, and then it came out and people were like, oh yeah, that.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's always
No,
like
I read
that.
the article. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, this could have sped up the process of making this and pitching it, getting it chosen, but okay. It's tough to be Don John Johnson Ronsonville.
I still can't say that name. You did it so easy. Don John Johnson. Thank you. I just keep looking over here. We're going to take one more question from the audience. Ooh, we have a gentleman in the back there.
Hi, I really enjoyed the show, and I definitely think I would watch the Netflix or the deep fake. Love is Blind is a deep fake. There's this. What you kind of mentioned this in the show, but what do you think of content now that intentionally triggers the audience so that they engage with the content, which prompts the algorithm to promote it, which you showed in this show?
I think, I guess my gut answer is like, it's inevitable. So that it's just it's an acceleration and intensification of what storytellers have always done. In that I'm not trying to tell a story about a guy who has a nice time. I'm trying to tell a story about someone who is really in the shit and they have a lot of problems and everything is against them. And oh my God, what if this then happened it seemed improbable, but it would be really awful if that happened, and they had a really stressful time. And that's sort of what makes a good story. So when I think we have a lot of things that are maybe like, we get a bit of them and that's the spice of life and that's a great story. And then when we have them at the scale of billions and billions of pieces of content flying and we can't, like, what is a story and what is real? Is that a piece of news? I don't know. I think the problem lies in the inability to distinguish, does the content, like, are you trying to show me reality or is this a fiction that you've crafted? Because if it's a fiction you've crafted and it's very triggering, well, that's kind of along the lines of what is in line with storytelling. But when it's all jumbled together and it's so accelerated and it's such a density of it, that's a problem in and of itself, even if I don't have the sort of outrage and trauma machine as part of it.
I mean, I think it's, in Jessica's apology, like, she tries the gambit. Like, she, the crying, the pleading, the sexy time. Like, what can I do that is gonna, hit enough triggers to hit enough likes to get all the things? And again, I think it's us being able to know the difference. Like, when are people doing it for that reason? So I can be enraged and this and that, but I was like, well, I'm enraged because Prince Harry didn't use the coupon for his popcorn when he's that rich. Oh my God, the outrage. And I'm like, well, like, shouldn't I be thinking about something else? Like, do I have to spend my outrage on that? Like, I think that's the thing that we need to do a better job, because everyone's coming with the sexy times and the outrage and the big tears. So figuring out which one of those I can only spend my 3, emotional reserves to have empathy for something. I need to spend them wisely, because if not, I'm not going to have it for things that could truly matter.
Yeah, it's the Wild West online, and again, the discernment's popping up of like, I think now it's fallen to the audience to have to figure out, okay, how do I engage my algorithm so that it shows me not the same thing, but different things? How do I not feed into rage content, even if sometimes it is entertaining and I'm less like watching it, the mess with the popcorn and the eyes, because those are my 2 favorite emojis. Like how as audience members and people that create, but especially if you're being inundated with it all, how do you discern what is, I can't even say real, because that word feels very murky.
For me, I'm sort of obsessed with and for me, tying into this question about like what would the effects of constant viewing of deliberately triggering content be? I think about like, well, if algorithms know what I speak about, what I watch for longer, what I click on. I mean, you hardly even have to click on anything. You just pause for 100 milliseconds, and no, it's gonna give me more of this. Like, what is that teaching? What are they learning about my affect? And what is my affect in terms of what I put into the world? Telling the algorithm about who I am and what I like and how I feel. And I mean, does watching, if we have an ever escalating series of more and more scandalous and traumatizing reality TV dating shows, do I eventually like will I pick up that affect and use it in my own life? I don't know. Maybe. I would if I was a bot. But I think, we pick up accents, we pick up facial expressions, we pick up ways of being and phrases, and bots do too.
This is my last question. If there was one social media app you could get rid of that you think would not heal the world, but at least give us a bit of time to heal some things.
I mean, I've just got to say, like, I fear it because there's no point, because just next one would come. Vine was here. It now got replaced by that. So if we
Humor
took,
me, humor me.
All right.
This is our magical world.
I mean, to me, it's TikTok, because
Ooh.
in my own generation, like, I was like, I'm drawing the hard line in the sand. I'm not touching that.
As an outsider, I feel like it's Instagram.
Yeah,
Because
because you
I
got to
feel
watch
like-
me on it all
Yeah,
day.
and I feel like
On your 5 different accounts.
I feel like I continuously read or receive from others that the most mental health decline they experience is attributable to Instagram. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, maybe 6 years ago I would have said Twitter.
I mean, I'm still going to say Twitter.
Okay.
I'm shocked you didn't say Twitter. That was the wrong answer. I'm kidding.
We don't touch it. That's why.
Fair. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Khadija.
everyone in the audience, for coming.
So it's customary at Innis events to give the last word to a current student. So tonight we have Scott Mitchell, who's a national scholar at the college and a current major in drama and sexual diversity studies. So I'll let Scott come up and have a few words.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking our creators of Content Farm, Lauren Gillis and Alaine Hutton, for a comedic and chilling commentary on what it means to have AI learn from our internet landscape. Thank you for helping us to understand how the internet has reshaped human connection and relationships, making us question our relationship to internet creators and parasociality, and broadening the conversation around originality, ownership, monetization, and creative copyright. This exploration of our current day internet experience has been incredible, and thank you for taking us on it. Lastly, I would like to thank the principal of Innis, Charlie Keel, our moderator, Khadija Mbowe, and everyone who came together tonight to produce this event. Thank you all so much, and thank you, audience, for coming.